All right, some of the new DLSS4 features have been dropped already ahead of the launch of the 50 series, which is awesome. And I've already got Cyberpunk 2077 loaded up here so we can take a look at it. And we're going to take a look at the good, the bad, and the ugly. And I hope there's more good than ugly, but we'll get into it. So, first of all, I'm jumping right into the footage here because this is literally me live as I'm looking at it. But the PC that I'm on right now is it's a 9700X. So AM5 is on the new B850 motherboard. Just put this thing together in the Jonesboro Z20 case. I should have more out on that build. Super fun build. But I'm putting this thing in like the worst case scenario to put this through its the ringer. So not the worst case scenario, but this is my 4060 Ti, which is my least favorite card that I own. It's a terrible value. I would never buy one. I'm not an AMD or NVIDIA fanboy. I do a lot with both. But the 4060 Ti, 8 GB specifically, is terrible. Do not buy it. I have one in this computer today, so I'm talking from experience. It's a terrible value. But we're going to take a look at some of the new DLSS4 features. So if you come in here to Cyberpunk, you can see there was a little update on your Steam, and you got DLSS Super Resolution. It doesn't have a number on there, but then you've got this resolution preset, transformer or CNN network. The transformer is the new, you can see right here, DLSS transformer model offers more image stability, less ghosting, and improved anti-aliasing in comparison with the original DLSS CNN. Confirmation required. So we're going to look at a couple things here. I put it what I call the worst case scenario because just got hit by a car. This is my 4060 Ti, and it's on my I gotta turn my input down there a little bit. I think I might be popping. All right, I'm so excited. I'm yelling at this thing. All right, so I have the 4060 Ti on my 4K 165 hertz monitor, and so I don't think anyone would argue that the 4060 Ti is a 4K capable card. It's a pretty bad value. I got a 3060 Ti, and I almost would rather play with that card because I paid 170 bucks for it off eBay, and well, this one I paid 300 bucks off of eBay, but they're both about the same card, minus the frame gen. But let's talk about the good first. So if you come in here to the settings, I got this set up. So video full screen 4K, looking great. Graphics, it says custom because if you change anything, it goes to custom. I had this on basically ultra, no ray tracing. So we got DLSS on, the new transformer model. We're on ultra performance. Ultra performance. So all the early access stuff, people were like, dude, performance, ultra performance looks like quality used to. Let's find out. Ray tracing's all off. And then if you come down here, film grain, all this is all, turn motion off. Don't like that. Well, actually, this is on medium. So it's on medium right now. So if you look at this, it's all on medium settings. And as we come in here, we're in Dogtown. I'll tell you right now, for a 4060 Ti on 4K, this looks amazing. And let me make sure. Yep, frame gen is off. So first of all, takes a second for the frames to recover. We're getting like 122 FPS on. This looks very good for what it is. I would play the game like this. So huge props on the ultra performance mode. And yeah, would it look better closer to native on my 4090? Absolutely. But if I bought a 60 series card and was able to play 4K like this, I'd be super happy. So NVIDIA, props to you. The new transformative model, this looks amazing. So we're getting like 100 FPS, frame gen's not even required. Um, you know, this is how I would play and I would be happy. So they added something to my experience because this looks much better than the old model. So what are the negatives here? Well, I think the negatives are in there. Damn, these cars got it out for me. I think the negatives are in their marketing. Because if you remember, they showed, okay, they showed the 4090. Is this like a quest or something? I have no idea what's going on here. I'm going to go somewhere else. All right, they showed the 4090. Sorry, I won't get distracted by the game anymore. They showed the 4090, saying like path tracing on this game could only get 30 FPS, but through the magic of DLSS, in the 5090s, like 30% more. So it could get like, 30 or 50 FPS or something. Through the magic of DLSS, it can go up to like 250 FPS. Well, let's talk about that. Because the thing is I feel like we're all forgetting when FrameGen came out, all the manufacturers said you need to have a base level of 60 FPS for this to look good. And anything short of that's going to start looking like garbage. And we're going to take this worst case scenario and let's see how that manifests itself. So we're going to come in here and we're going to go to, let's say ray tracing. I tell you what, let's just go to Ultra and then we're going to manually set it up. So Transformer, we'll go to Ultra Performance. FrameGen, we definitely need that on. We're going to go to Ray Tracing on now. Let's just do Reflections and Local Shadows. That's it. Lighting and Path Tracing off. Everything else looks good. Let's apply this. Okay, so now we're on Ultra mode with some light ray tracing dabbled in, and this takes a second, I think, for the computer to catch up. Okay, so when you look at, so on the left, I have my MSI Afterburner, and on the right, up at the top, you have NVIDIA's actual overlay. And so it's saying the average system latency is 43 milliseconds. That falls about in line with what they've showed on their promo stuff. But let's talk about this. Instantly terrible. The game looks blurry. There's so much smearing. But it's still saying I get 90 FPS. So like, oh man, I'm at 90 FPS. Like my goal really is 60, so I could turn the settings up more. No. Like I guarantee you, if I played this, I don't get motion sick, but if I played this, I'd probably get sick, man. Like it's smearing like crazy. You might see some screen tearing from my capture card because it can only do 60 FPS. I'm not getting the screen tearing on my screen because it's a 165 hertz monitor, but it is so blurry. And even like, I guess in a still frame, it looks okay. But my point here is we're kind of abandoning this like, hey, you got to have a base level of frame rate. So when they're telling me, the 4070 is the same as the 4090, because you can do 4-time frame gen, you have to have a base level of frame rate or else it looks terrible. And that's my biggest concern. And obviously the cards aren't out yet. And this is, the first game that I've seen with this implemented. But just because that number goes up doesn't mean it's better, I guess, is my point, which is my big concern with a lot of the cards coming out. Now, most of the people, the embargoes have lifted and most people are very, very impressed. I think that's also because only the 70 series and up has, been announced. But I would not play the game this way. I would absolutely turn it off. And a lot of people are going to say, well, like, yeah, you're trying to 4K ray trace on a 4060. That seems bizarre. Well, saying that a 4070 or a 5070 is going to be the same as a 4090 because you can just turn on all this frame gen, it's the same thing. If your base level of frame rate is too low, it looks like absolute garbage. So even with the transformer model, it's trying to do all of its work. We got frame gen on. Let's just get a little crazier with it. Let's turn to actual late ray trace. We'll go medium and shadows and everything on. Path tracing obviously off. Let's see what we can do here. All right, once again, it's telling me I'm getting 80 frames per second, 70, 80, but I mean, this looks terrible. I'm getting tons of blur and movement, even standing still. I mean, like if you stand absolutely still, I guess it looks okay, but it looks like I have film grain on even when, oh, I guess it did turn back on. All right, let me turn film grain and motion blur off. Maybe that's part of the problem. Let's try to clean it up. I'll give them their fair shake. Yeah, now it feels choppy. So the motion blur was just covering up the choppiness. So it's like, well, I'm at 80 frames per second. Why does this look so bad? Um, oh my God. Once again, it's probably hard for you guys to tell because the capture card's got screen tearing and the choppiness, but this is not a 75 FPS experience. And I'm not saying that this means that the 50 series is going to be bad, because I think on a 70 and up series card, this is going to do a lot better. And obviously, like I said in the beginning, this is the worst case scenario. And we're going to look at a much more positive scenario here in a minute. But once again, I'm trying to talk about their marketing is when you're saying like a 4070 is going to be a 4090, it's not, because if the or 5090, because if the 4090 was getting 30 FPS in this game with path tracing on, and you're saying the 4070 is going to get all the way up to match it with this new frame gen, as you can see here, it garbage in is garbage out. There's just not enough data here. So, I mean, the AI is trying its hardest, but this is so bad that I mean, I'm freaking, I got an iron stomach, so I'm not actually, but I could see a lot of people just getting sick from this. But once again, you look at the counter and you're like, big number better, uh, getting 80 FPS, my computer kicks butt. Just absolutely false. And once again, a lot of the post embargo lift reviews are very, very positive. So I'm not saying anything bad about the cards. I just think that this frame gen thing, even if they do a really good job, this is the old single, fake frame. If you go to quadruple fake frame and you got performance mode upscaling, this whole like I'm gonna play at 240 FPS because that's my OLED supports. Like in my opinion, yeah, the number's gonna show it, but it's not gonna feel good. Like this is a terrible experience. If I was gonna play this game again, I would turn frame gen off because that was just terrible. I would put it in performance mode and I turn ray tracing off. And now this is, I think, the biggest uplift is the upscaler. I mean, looks absolutely amazing. It takes a second for the computer to catch up, but like this does look great. So, and once again, the number says 39 FPS. This looks 100 even in motion. This looks 100 times better than the old one did. So, this was my worst case scenario, but I bring it up because I think in marketing they put forth the worst case scenario. It was like, hey, a 4070s or a 5070 is going to outpace, a 4090. And I mean, everybody's talked crap on that. But then I think what's dangerous is the reviewers have like started to hint at like, oh no, like they really did do that good of a job with DLSS4. And I was hoping, the model would just be something like magical. But as you saw, it's like garbage in, garbage out, and the higher number doesn't mean anything because this still doesn't feel great. But I would rather play like this than the alternative of what I showed you before. So let's take a look at my 4090 and see how it does with the new settings. Okay, so we got our 4090 booted up here. So for video, we're full screen, 4K again. Graphics, we've gone up to Ultra, Ray Tracing Overdrive, DLSS, the new Transformer model. We're going to put it on performance mode. Ray reconstruction on, frame gen off initially, ray tracing all on, high, everything on, film grain and motion blur will turn off because I don't like those. And path tracing and everything is on. So this is a 4090 with a 9800X 3D. So right off the rip here, I'm going to say once again, upscaler is unreal. This is a 4090 with path tracing on performance mode, and I'm getting 70 to 75 FPS. So this is how I would play the game, because this is a single player game. This looks amazing in motion. It looks great. Everything looks good. Just for kicks, let's say we want more. And once again, so they used to all say you got to have 60 FPS base frame rate in order to make this work. Well, we had 70 as the base frame rate, and that's interesting. This still looks good, but I'm not showing the higher frame rate. Maybe I don't have, just because I don't have the NVIDIA app open, maybe. All right, I found the problem. I hadn't been on this computer in a little bit. I didn't have everything updated. So we got the NVIDIA overlay on there now. So you can see 44 frames per second. We're going to go through a couple different things to talk about this. So obviously we already looked at the worst case scenario. Now we're on Psycho Overdrive Transformer. I'm just going to demonstrate DLAA frame gen. We'll take it off. All right. So there you go. About 24 FPS with frame gen off. This is our native 4K Psycho Path Tracing Overdrive NVIDIA Tech Demo Insanity. Not very good, but this still at least feels real. Like, yeah, it's only 23 FPS, but this feels better than the other thing did. So we'll go to settings, frame gen on, confirm. So I'll let it even out here. That latency is really high. It's got to be. So that's another thing to talk about. Is like, because we have such a low base frame rate, like this actually looks a lot better than the 4060 Ti did, even in motion. But the latency is just high because we have such a low base frame rate. So like it's at 100, 120 ms, and I can feel it. I can feel it when I'm looking at my mouse. Like, this does not feel good. For such a low frame rate, I would rather have frame gen off. But at least it looks clean compared to the other card. Now, obviously, that's not the point. So let's just start going through these. We'll leave frame. Let's turn frame gen off. We'll go through all these. So quality, we're up to 46, and frame gen off. This is much more playable, but like really, you know, per what they've always said, which I think is still true, you want to have a base frame rate of 60. So let's see what we get here. Balanced, that's the magic number. And I tell you what, instantly this feels so much more responsive and looks great. As for a single player game, I mean, this is pretty damn close to how you'd want to play it on a 4090, which is insane. Is Psycho, ray trace, path trace, whatever, balanced. And this is where NVIDIA put in the work, I can tell, because this feels way more responsive. You can tell that up in the right-hand corner that the system latency is down, and it still looks good. I have not seen any like glaring differences walking down from DLA down to balanced. Let's go to performance, take a look at it. Okay, right there. This still looks good, but especially looking at those trees, I feel like I can see a little bit of a difference. So like that might have been it's hard to tell. It's hard to tell. I think in motion and playing, you'd have a real hard time noticing a difference. If it was me, I'd leave it in balanced. I would leave it in balanced. I can sort of tell. And then let's try that frame gen on. So now we're going from that 60 to about 100. Overall system latency, high 40s, low 50s. So this is what I'll say, is this is the moneymaker. That transformative model, there's some weird shadowing going on. That transformative model versus the old version, the CNN, it's doing a lot of work because you are able to upscale a lot more. And 4K has always been the best case scenario for upscaling. You don't want to upscale when you're at 1080p. You don't want to upscale. I mean, 1440p is not bad, but 1080p definitely no. 4K is the best case scenario, and they've definitely improved it. I would say the biggest thing I'm noticing from the first game I've played with this technology is that the upscaler is a great addition. And on this, the frame gen's not bad either. Like, I could definitely play the game this way. I can feel a tiny bit of a difference. So, I guess my overall reaction, and I think a lot of reviewers post embargo have said it's a very positive reaction. But I think a lot of them also are playing on the 5090 because that's the one everybody wants to review and take a look at. So, if you, in my opinion, things have improved, but some things have not changed. So, if you have a 60 FPS base frame rate and you want to use single frame gen, it seems good. But what makes me nervous is, and the 5090 has had significant hardware changes to improve it. What makes me nervous is a lot of the other cards haven't, and they're heavily relying on the frame gen. And when you don't have the base frame rate, this isn't new news that I'm talking about. This is the same old news. It's just like, hey, I'm looking at their new model, and it's still a factor. Is if you don't have the base frame rate, doing a single frame gen is bad. So now imagine doing 4 times frame gen. So when they demo, like, hey, you had 30 FPS on path tracing, and now we have 250 FPS. I'm calling it right now. That's not going to look good, and maybe this video will age poorly, and I'll put my foot in my mouth because maybe all the additional AI capability in the new cards makes it even better. But that's my stance on it. Is the and I've said this over and over again, the AI is the cherry on top. Like, you have to have the base frame rate, and then it can give you that little bit extra. But that little bit extra is not taking your frame rate from 30 FPS to 250 FPS with a good looking picture. That's just, in my opinion, not going to happen even on the next generation. So I think this is a great upgrade from the upscaler perspective and the transformative model versus the CNN model. I think that's huge. Being able to play games in performance mode or more games in balanced mode, not feeling bad about it, that's huge. I mean, this still looks great. And you can see here, we took my frame rate, I was originally at 24 and we're at 102. But a majority of that is the upscaling, which I think is their biggest improvement. A minority of that, because if we go back and look with frame gen off, so we went from like 24 to 57. We basically doubled our frame rate through the upscaler, and then we added another 40% through the frame gen. It's not quite double. It's a little less than double. So that's a nice balanced solution, and this still looks pretty good. But once again, I don't know how it's going to react on lower end cards once you're doing like triple frame generation. I think it will potentially work if you have that 60 FPS base. But like I've said, what's dangerous is their marketing is getting out of control, and they're like, hey, you're going to take a card that gets, no FPS, and you're going to turn it into, 100 FPS. And I just don't think that I don't think it's going to work that way. But we'll have to see. So, I mean, this is kind of just like a me ranting video. I had to turn the sound down on the game there. I have it muted for you guys, but it's a me ranting video, and bottom line, we'll have to see how all the cards stack out. I think there's some huge improvements, and I would also assume that this is like an early. This is the first game that I'm aware of that it doesn't even say DLSS4, but it does have that transformer model. So I'm assuming this is like a very early rendition, and we've seen how like different games can implement DLS either better or worse. But that's kind of my feelings on it. Is I think on the high end, well, I think across the board, the upscaling improvements are going to be huge. I'm going to be shocked if anyone like seriously recommends playing in like 3-time upscale mode. Maybe they will. I don't know. We'll have to see once we get our hands on the card. But if you got a different opinion, let me know in the comments below, and definitely hit a subscribe on that. And thanks for watching.